Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The List. As always, my name is Brett. Jordan is with me as always. Jordan, this is a down week. For me, it's between Mardi Gras and St. Patty's Day. So, taking
That
this
is a
week easy.
fun window of days to be in. A lot of people sobering up over these next 10 days or so.
Very much so. It was a fun weekend, though. Got to see a lot of people haven't seen before. So the one bar had a $500 bead contest on Saturday, and you're supposed to collect the beads downtown.
How many beads did you collect, Brett?
I gave mine away.
Okay.
What I was gonna say is some lady went onto Amazon and bought $200 worth of beads. So we see her and like the beads are covering her face up to here, and it's like wearing a vest. There are that many beads all over her. So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, so you spent $200 to make $500. Respect. But yeah, it was a fun weekend. It was and it was dollar drinks. So I had
Did she win the contest?
I believe so. I left beforehand because it was one of those things where it got to 1:30, and my rule is no later than 1:30 because nothing good happens after that.
After 1:30, most people say midnight.
Yeah, midnight. Yeah, but I just don't want to be there at last call. So that's the one rule I have.
Well, while you were partying for Mardi Gras, there was an NFL Combine going on between last week and over the weekend, and I'm excited to do a mock draft. We said the last time we did it how much different it's going to be post Combine, and I think at least that today ours will probably look a little different. It'll be interesting to match it up against what we did just about a month ago.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because it seems to be a very differing opinion on winners and losers, even among experts. And excuse me, we will get into our winners and losers in a second, but one person I've seen in both is Will Campbell, because athletically he tested out great, but a lot of people have him a loser because his arm length was, what was it, 32 or 33 inches? It was an inch shorter than you want it to be. I know, because I think they said last year at the end of the season, there was only 6 starting offensive tackles that had 34-inch or less than 34-inch arms. So some people have him as a loser, some have him winner because of how he tested. It just kind of confirms to me he's a guard.
It seems like to me it kind of proves what you've been saying about Will Campbell for a little while now, that he's definitely a guard. Yeah. I think he can play tackle. I said on our last show that I think he can play tackle, but I think he's set at that probably a left guard position for whatever team drafts him. But that's kind of good for the Dolphins because it looked like he might slip a little bit and be kind of in that range that we're going to be picking.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree with that. So do we want to go into winners and losers with the Combine first, or do you want to talk about the big news in the wrestling world with John Cena doing the long-awaited heel turn?
So listen, Brandon, I'm sure the second you said that, you saw the smile on my face. We'll talk about – you'll give me my one wrestling minute, just like you gave it to me last week. Last week we were talking about Elimination Chamber, and it's funny because I have a friend that perfectly called this. So from the moment that The Rock said kind of that he was looking to take Cody Rhodes' soul, and what we were talking about last week, I got to give credit to a friend of mine, but it's so long overdue. But it's going to be fun during this final John Cena run over the next 9 months here to see him as a heel, and to see him in a heel in a time where WWE is a lot more, I feel like, public and mainstream than it's been in the last decade or two. And to see kind of all these – and look, I don't know how I feel about Travis Scott being in the ring for it. It's cool to see all these celebrities around the WWE. But this John Cena thing moving forward, it's going to be really interesting to see. Are they going to add someone else to this little grouping? The name I heard was LA Knight, another guy that could be a big swerve that has acting career. His name literally has LA in it, so it could have the Hollywood twist. He could be Hollywood Knight, I don't know, for 6 months, but I think there's a lot of different avenues they can go in. To be completely honest, have not watched Raw from last night. I know it wasn't brought up much, other than Punk's promo early. That's my plan actually when I get off of here. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see where they go in the lead up towards WrestleMania. I think now they have him beat Cody Rhodes. I didn't think that he was going to win the title so soon, but I think they do. And then it's going to be interesting to see where they go with him and how long this final run of his goes until he steps away or doesn't in December.
My question would be, when does Peacemaker season 2 come out? Because that would be my guess of when everything goes. But it was definitely interesting because I'll be honest, the last couple weeks, my interest in WWE's kind of faded. I don't think SmackDown's really been good recently, and Raw's on Netflix, so I'll put it on. It's kind of background noise to me. But as for after we're done with this podcast, TV show I've been waiting years to see to come out. The first 2 episodes dropped on Disney Plus today, and that would be Daredevil: Born Again. I don't know if you saw.
A lot of fun, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the Netflix show, but that is one of my favorite shows of all time. They got everybody back, and not to go into comic talk too much. The previews do show that they have one of the coolest villains in this show who doesn't get a lot of mainstream attention. So it'll be interesting to see how he's done. So I'm not going to spoil too much with that. But yeah, I did pay attention to the Combine too. Before we go into the our winners and losers, I got to say, I still do like the tight end class, but man, were they disappointing in the Combine. Like Gunnar Helm, I get, because he destroyed his foot, it looks like. They said it's just twisted, but if that's just a twist, I don't know what to tell you, because his foot was like 3 different shades of purple.
Yeah, you saw that picture. That thing was huge.
Yeah. But yeah, you're expecting Gunnar Helm and the Bowling Green tight end Fannin to separate themselves. And it really seems like the 2 people who came out as winners in the tight end class were Mason Taylor and Terrence Ferguson.
Yeah, those definitely are the winners, and there's the obvious connection for Mason Taylor to the Dolphins. But I think this opens up the door for us to make a move for more of a veteran tight end to pair with Jonnu Smith, unless we actually are going to take Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland in round 1. And I don't think that that's too far-fetched. And I think it could be a smart plan depending on what other moves we make in free agency. So it's funny because we're going to get to our mock draft, but when it comes specifically to the Dolphins, it's going to be interesting to see the way from mock to mock that we do leading up to late April, the way that changes, because right now the Dolphins need 2 guards. If we only add 1 guard and a couple other pieces leading up to the draft, we're going to need to plug in that other guard spot. Now, did you sign a right guard and you need Will Campbell? Did you sign a left guard and you need Membo from Missouri? So that's Mbo, and then you have they're too close to names.
Membo and Bo.
I'll just call them Missouri Kid and Purdue Kid. The Purdue Kid can really play everywhere. But I think that the Missouri kid really fits at right guard. I think Will Campbell really fits at left guard. And I think that the player that you want to add needs to have some versatility. I look at a guy like Patrick McCarry from Baltimore, who has a lot of versatility. Aaron Banks looks to me like a little more of a left guard, or if I'm remembering that correctly. And you have guys that specifically play one side or the other. And I want us in this next generation of team to stick to these guys' strengths and put them in places that they're going to succeed instead of moving guys to make the system fit.
Yeah. Well, going back to tight end real quick, Michael Mayer from the Raiders is apparently.
I think that's the name.
Yeah, apparently he's on the market on a trading block. I would definitely give up a 4th for him. I think that would be fair.
I would even give up like a 4th and a 6th or something like that.
Yeah, I would try and keep it to 1 pick if possible, but he solves the inline blocking. I think I saw he only has in 2 years 3 drop passes. I think our non-Janu tight ends struggled to get 3 catches all year.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to look at. But you were talking about Colston Loveland too. I'm not saying he is better than Tyler Warren because I don't think he is. I think Tyler Warren gives you a little more versatility, though I do think Loveland is probably better in the red zone. What I am going to say is if you look at Daniel Jeremiah's top 50, DJ tends to be the most in tune with what NFL scouts are saying. And he has, this may have changed since, but I think in his first one, he had both Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland as top 10 players in the draft. So I do think I think Loveland is closer to Warren than people give credit. And I will say this again, if Michigan had a even mediocre quarterback all year, I think you would see them as maybe not 1 and 1A, but I think you would see them like this and then a big gap to Harold Fannin.
Would I be crazy to say that I think that Loveland is closer to Warren in scouts' eyes than Shador is to Cam Ward?
I would agree with that. I think the difference, of course, is quarterback is such a need and such a volatile position. It just takes one team to want to gamble.
Yeah.
So, but that is the hot rumor as well that teams are not as high on Shador Sanders as the media is. But that tends to be every quarterback every year. Malik Willis was a first-round pick for most of the cycle. Will Levis was a first-round pick, and neither
both went to the Titans.
And both went to the Titans. And look, they might need another. Well, they do need another quarterback. The question is, will they take one or not?
There's a lot of smoke and steam picking up about the Giants trading for that pick, and we'll talk about that when we do our mock, because I do think that that's a very likely trade with the Giants moving from 3 to 1 to get a guy like Cam Ward. And after the mistake they made last year, and Neighbors is great. But I think that the Giants really need to get a quarterback, a young quarterback in there. I think Dable's job is on the line with that. I think that if they bring in a rookie and they're average, those guys survive and they keep building. I think if they bring in a veteran and they're average, they're done.
Yeah. No, like said it, and it was out there for the public. The Saquon situation blew up in their face.
Yeah.
The Daniel Jones extension blew up in their face. Literally, almost everything they've done has blown up in their face.
There's nothing that will make your franchise happier in this moment where things keep blowing up in your face than trading up for the number 1 pick and taking a quarterback.
And they're also looking at Matthew Stafford as well.
Well, I saw Stafford now says he's staying with the Rams, and they're going to – I believe they might have already restructured there. But they're going to look at every veteran that's available. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like Atlanta did last year and bring in Kirk Cousins and then still draft the kid number 1.
Yeah. And before we get into the winners and losers of the combine, I just want to take a moment to just laugh at the Jets. They just released Davante Adams. Why? You and I said this last year. Why would you even trade for him other than to make Aaron Rodgers happy? You knew you weren't going anywhere. He doesn't fit. Now you're in a full rebuild mode. It just didn't make sense then. It's just, for me, it's just fun to laugh at him. And I know some people are going to say, oh, we haven't won anything either. Fuck you. It's the Jets. I'm going to make fun of the Jets.
You know what it's like, Brent? It's like you having you're playing a poker game and you don't have that many chips left, but you don't have that great of a hand either. And you're kind of in a position where you're at the point where you have to go all in. So you go all in with a hand you don't feel that strong about, just because you're at a low point. They had to try to get Davante Adams. They had to try to go all out to the Rodgers thing. It didn't work, and for definitely, I'd say the next year, their team's going to suffer a little bit for it. But releasing Davante Adams is the first in that line of pain that they're going to have to go through to get to whatever their next structure of team is going to look like.
Yeah.
That's a spot I wouldn't be surprised to see a guy like Jackson Dart go to.
No, that's a good shout. And that's a good segue. As Jackson Dart sounds like he hit a home run for everything at the combine, especially with Cam Ward didn't throw. I don't think Shador Sanders threw either, but it sounded like he did great in the drills, and he also killed every interview he had. So it does sound like the question now is not if Jackson Dart will be a first-round pick, but how high will he go?
Yeah, I think the area you're going to look at is it. First of all, it depends what happens with Shador. If Shador, if somebody moves up to take him in that top 3 or so, and Cleveland takes him, then Dart's going to go in the top 7. If Shador slips a little bit, then I think you could start seeing Dart drop a little bit and be a candidate for a team to trade up early in the second round to get him on the end of night 1 to get that 5th year.
Yeah. 1 second, I just got a call that came in. 1 sec. I can't take it.
But yeah, let's get while Brett's segueing there. I'll give you my 3 winners. They're straightforward, but I do think 2 of them are actually position groups that I'm going to shout out in my 3 winners. The first one that I'm going to give, and this is my number 3, is going to be the running back group. I think that we knew this running back group was going to be deep, but I think now you're going to see this running back group rise. I think you might now, every mock draft that I've looked at over the last 2 days has had 2 running backs in the first round, with Omarion Hampton from North Carolina going in the first round along with Ashton Genty. And I think there are a number of guys, shout out RJ Harvey, who are now going to go by the end of day 2. I wouldn't be surprised if more running backs go in the first 2 days than have in years past. So the running back group, I think, definitely gave it a good boost. And I think that there are going to be teams that get running backs on day 3 that they can plug and play because this is a really good crop of backs. Number 2, I'm going to go the defensive line group. I think that we knew there were some edges that could play. I think that there are a number of guys, Shamar Stewart being a big one, Mike Green being a big one, that are skyrocketing. James Pierce being one of them that are really high up on this board right now. And I think that the combine solidified that. And number 1, I mean, I love him, is Nick Emenwari from South Carolina. He was a guy I think people really are talking about as a potential safety 1 right now. And I think he's a guy that kind of secured that he's going to secure his name called in the first 20 picks of the draft.
Yeah. I was going to have Nick Emenwari in my top 3. I'm going to take him out now because I knew he was going to be in there. I saw some people saying that you were jumping on the hype of the combine. Now, I will say this right now. He has been hyping up Emenwari as a first-round pick for months.
I want you to go back to the very first rankings that we did. I had Emenwari on there, and I had Siobhan Revel on there. Those were 2 of the top players that I had. I've been on Emenwari for a while, and I think that whoever gets him is going to get a guy that's going to be highly impactful, especially very, very early on in his career. He's a guy that can do a bunch of different things.
Yeah. So I will skip him. I will go with my 3-2-1 like you did. I'm going to cheat as well, and I did see, and I'm also going to give credit to CBS because they mentioned this, but I'm going to give the win to a school, and it's the Iowa State prospects. Both Darian Porter and the wide receiver, the wide receivers Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins all had great combines to the point where Porter might get into the bottom half of the first round, especially with this cornerback class. And Higgins and the other wide receiver, I just lost his name, Noel. Higgins might get into the bottom half of the first round too. But they came in as unknowns, and they just killed the combine. So I will give Iowa State the win there. Number 2 is a wide receiver I am not a big fan of, and that is Matthew Golden. I never understood the hype in Golden, but he came in and delivered. And what'll happen is he has probably passed Luther Burden on the on the big board for many teams. So good on him. And
not on my big board.
Yeah, and then which Cyclone? Cyclone receiver has the best fit for us. I
Yeah,
believe
Jaden
that's
Higgins. Jaden Higgins is a
Jaden.
great
Yeah.
fit for us.
Yeah. And we talked about him earlier, but the number one winner to me, since I'm not going to do Emanwari, is the Missouri offensive lineman Armand Membu. I think he, like you said, I think he's a better guard, but I think he showed that he probably is the best tackle in this draft class too. I don't know if you saw this, but his top speed at the combine was higher than any of Tyreek's top speed last year.
Wow.
So the athleticism was there. He's fun to watch. Shout out to Scout Visions, our friends. They have their main scout, Barth, has had Mbu as the number one tackle for a couple months too in the draft. And I agree with that. I think now you see Membu going from a potential top 15 pick that we're talking about to probably a top 5, to potentially a top 5 pick. So
yeah,
those would be my 3.
If you asked me last week if I was drafting a tackle, who would I pick? And I still do have Will Campbell. I think he's the most surefire thing for what at least we need, and I think what a team will need on the offensive line. But I think if you need a tackle, and specifically a plug-and-play right tackle, I think Membu is your guy, and he'll be probably the number one tackle off the board.
Okay. Jordan, pull up our X account real quick. Mr. S shared a mock. Before we get into our mock, he wants us to look at his and grade it. So let's pull that bad boy up.
I'm going to proofread it first. Make sure that it's... Oh, it's a Dolphin-specific mock. Okay. This he's allowed to do.
Okay.
I was expecting some sort of spoof mock from our friend.
All right. So let's see what our lovely friend from Wales has as his mock draft for the Dolphins. So go ahead and pull that up, J-Man.
Is it up?
So what? He has us trading down, getting Calvin Banks, Carson Schweisinger, Darian Porter. I don't think Porter's going to be there. And Bo's definitely not going to be there. Andrew Makuba, definitely not going to be there.
He took Jackson Dart in the 4th round. This is a crazy mock draft.
Yeah, PFF needs to update their stuff. I do like the draft. Mr. S is known for his outrageous all the time trade downs, to the point where I refuse to do mock drafts with him because of how many trade downs he does. But player wise, I like it. I just don't see it happening.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about something, Mr. S. I think that the players you had were excellent. I thought it was very, very good. I'm more so ragging on the service themselves for having those guys available in those spots. But I thought you did a really good job given the players that were available at the places you picked.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm like my one friend just sent me a message and was like, "I'm right by your house," and sent a picture, and it's like right behind. I'm like,
bring him on. Bring him on the pod.
Nah, we don't need that.
Brett's one friend on the pod.
No, thank you. But who are your losers from the combine?
Say it again.
Who are your losers from the combine?
I think you said it before the tight end class. I thought Harold Fannin ran slower than people wanted to see. Obviously, the injury to Gunnar Helm,
Yep.
and I think that no tight end really outside of the top 2 kind of stepped up. I think that it definitely doesn't look like it's as strong or as deep as a class as we probably thought it was. So that's definitely one of them. I think that Will Howard needs a shout out there.
His was bad. His combine was bad.
Yeah, I thought his combine was really, really bad. And third, some of the offensive linemen, I think that this is a very deep offensive line class. But I don't think that a singular offensive lineman separated themselves as like you said that Mbu Embo, whichever one it is, the Missouri kid, didn't really separate that he's a top 10, potential top 5 pick. But to me, he's not in a strong offensive line class, a top 5 or top 10 draft pick. I think he's seen as that because he's done enough to kind of be better than the next guys. But I see this as a deeper offensive line class than I see it as a top offensive line class.
We're talking about the first one,
Missouri kid.
And it's MEMBOU.
And BOW, I think is.
I wish he would have worked out at the combine.
Yeah, but I think he's a guy that will end up going in that second round.
Yeah, I agree with your losers. I'd throw Tez Johnson from Oregon in there too. Because he's I think they said he's the lightest wide receiver at the combine in like 20 years, and he was the slowest wide receiver. So
you can't be both.
You can't be both. So there's that. And the other thing I found interesting is they pointed out that the combine measurements for the offensive linemen were all about half an inch to an inch and a half shorter, like when it came to arm's length.
Wow.
So there's going to be some discrepancy. So I do think we're going to be hearing a lot more about arm length than we normally do just because of that discrepancy.
There are a lot of guys I feel like this year that are guards and not tackles.
Oh, yeah. Like I've said this too. If you need a guard, which we do, I think you're going to love the draft class. If you need a tackle, it's which player are you willing to gamble on having a tackle upside?
Which player are you willing to banks on to be a tackle?
Yes.
You see what I did there?
I do see what you did there. But you teased it. Let's go right into our mock draft, our second mock draft.
Brett, I am sharing it. What I would like to do is go back and we can figure out a way to do this. And after we're done, towards the end of the draft process, kind of put all our mocks together to kind of show the way we've changed over time. But yeah, this is going to be exciting. Brett, what we'll do, last time I took the odds, you took the evens.
Mm-hmm.
This time, would you like to do the opposite? And then just like last time, we will do the Dolphins draft together. But let me pull up the mock. And I apologize if I get a little choppy after this. I'm going to try not to. But Brett, the Tennessee Titans are on the clock. The Tennessee Titans have a trade offer from the New York Giants. Do you think the Tennessee Titans are going to trade that number 1 pick since you have it?
So what makes me think they will, since the last time we had a podcast, was Harold Landry was allowed to seek a trade, which opens it up. So I do think they will take that trade.
So I'm going to send that number 1 pick to the Giants.
Yep.
I'm sorry, it's going to be the Giants and Tennessee. So up the 1 for the 3. Look at these picks. If I had to look, they're going to have to give up a next year's first because I think Tennessee is going to prioritize that, and I think that one of the Raiders or the Jets is going to give it.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to have to give up next year's first, and then we'll say something like 65.
Yeah.
So let's do that.
Apparently, Brett Albright is saying that the deal is basically done. And Albright's very hit or miss. If it's not Denver, he's hit or miss. But if it was Denver, I would trust him. So we're going to go ahead and do that trade.
I don't know why it. Maybe I have to do it this way. There we go. All right. You were on the clock with the New York Giants.
So the rumor was that the Giants preferred Shedeur Sanders. I think and from what I've seen a lot of people on social media say, is that's talk saying they didn't think they could get Sanders. Cam Ward. But if they trade up, I think they're going to go Cam Ward. He aced all the interviews. The only thing he didn't do was work out, and I think it would have solidified him as the number 1 overall pick. I think this is easy.
So number 2, the Cleveland Browns. I think that there are 3 directions they can go. Direction 1 is Travis Hunter. I think that he'll start off probably as their wide receiver 1. Option 2 is taking Shedeur Sanders, who will start because Deshaun Watson is not going to play. And number 3 is Abdul Carter, either pairing with Myles Garrett or trading Myles Garrett. I think as we get closer and closer to the draft, I think the Browns are going to miss out on a couple veteran quarterbacks and not get a guy at their number. And I think that the Browns, in the end, and I could see myself changing on this next month, but I think that the Browns do take Shedeur Sanders at 2.
So we're going now to the Titans, and I think they'll get Abdul Carter. I know Abdul Carter has the red flags now because he has a stress fracture in his foot, but he's the best player available. It is very difficult to pass on a quarterback, and the Titans have consistently done it, but I just think Carter, at this point, with the ammo you're going to get, you can get a little creative with it. But yeah, Carter, I think whether they get the first pick or the third pick, is going to be the guy.
And I think number 4, if it falls like this, is easy. I think the Patriots take Travis Hunter. Again, I think he's a guy surprising based off what Jim Nagy said to us. We've kind of been going off that impression, but it seems like a lot of teams actually have Travis Hunter as a wide receiver. I think that the Patriots, if there's an organization that's going to play a guy both, it's the Patriots. And it's funny that it's going to be Mike Vrabel, the guy who they did play at tight end a little bit in very important situational spots, is going to be taking a 2-way player with his first pick for New England. I think Travis Hunter is the pick at 4.
Yeah. Jacksonville, they're in a good spot at this point, but I think you want to add the most talented player available at this point, and I think that's going to be Mason Graham. You can argue that he was a loser at the combine because he came in at 296 rather than 320, but he still had a great bench, and he didn't test, which normal this year for the top people. But I think Graham at this point is too good to pass up.
And when you start looking at the Raiders at 6, it's easy to say this is a perfect spot for Jackson Dart because the Raiders obviously need a quarterback. But I don't know if I see Pete Carroll taking one in the first round and banking on this comeback with a first-round rookie. The last quarterback he took, I believe, is Russell Wilson, who he took in the 3rd round, if I remember correctly. And I don't think he's going to use one of these premium picks on a quarterback. What I do think he will do here is make a quarterback's life easier. And I think you do that in one of 2 ways. You either get an elite offensive line or you get an elite playmaker around him. And I think that elite playmaker is actually going to be Ashton Genty. I think that the Raiders are going to see an opportunity to do a very Raiders-like move. There's another pick like the Shedeur Sanders pick that I could see changing between this month and next month. But I think with this loaded running back class, you're going to see a lot of teams in this area, New Orleans being one of them, Chicago being one of them, that the Cowboys being another, that are going to be very, very angry when the Raiders take Genty at 6.
That would be a really Raiders thing, and I think they would get destroyed for it. On to the Jets. So who's the best punter available? No. I think the Jets are going to continue to try and build the trenches, and I think they're going to go Armand Membo. Like I said, I think he's the top guy now. You now got 2 bookend tackles, or a guard if you want to put Embo there with Fashanu. Elijah Vera Tucker cannot stay healthy, so you kind of have to start moving on from there. But Aaron Glenn comes from Detroit, And what did Detroit do when Dan Campbell got there? They built the trenches. I think all but one of their starters was a first round pick, um, maybe two at this point. But that's what the Lions did. And I think you're going to see Glenn bring a very similar mindset to the Jets.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see him going offensive line or something on the defensive side of the ball. With number 8, Carolina, I think you either have to add something on the defensive side of the football or add a weapon, being a guy like Tet McMillan. And I think that that's the direction they go. I think Dave Canellis really wants to make life for Bryce Young as easy as possible. And I think adding the number 1 receiver available does that. And if you consider Travis Hunter a corner, then Tet McMillan is the number 1 receiver in the draft. And although I think his stock has dropped slightly, I do still think he's in that place where Carolina is going to be a good fit for him. If they don't want to draft one of the edges that they definitely could draft here in this spot.
Yeah. New Orleans, they're going to go Will Johnson. New Orleans will always go with the top player available. Again, I think Johnson's too good to pass up. We've talked about it before with him. He does have some medical concerns because he missed pretty much 3/4 of the season with a toe injury. I am pretty sure it was a business decision, but it's come out that NFL teams have that question. If he's healthy, he is an elite athlete, probably top 5 athlete in this draft class, in my opinion. He is a playmaker. 4 of his career interceptions are pick sixes. So I think he's going to end up going to New Orleans if available.
And then 10, that's a great pick in Will Johnson at 10. Chicago, I think that if Genty was available at 10, I think that that's a direction the Bears would go, especially with Ben Johnson. But I think here he's going to understand that in order to do what the success he had in Detroit, he's going to have to figure out that offensive line. I think that putting myself in the mind of them, I think they'll see a guy like Kelvin Banks with a better upside at tackle specifically than Will Campbell. So I'm going to give the Bears Kelvin Banks at 10. Who I believe, if I remember correctly, we had the Dolphins take at 13 in our last mock draft.
Yeah, we did. San Francisco, I think they're going to go Mike Green from Marshall. I had him going top 10 in the last mock draft, I believe. I think we had him going to Carolina, maybe. I don't remember. But talk about someone who's just winning the offseason, had a great combine as well. And he, with the personal red flags, the sexual assault history, it does sound like he's been very upfront about it and has won the interviews, which, if true, with the Senior Bowl, with the combine he's had, and with the interviews, he is a top 10 player in this class.
And when you could have picked any of the edges there, and then when you start looking at Dallas, they really have needs all over the football. Like they have needs everywhere. I think that one thing that they will look to do is replace Zach Martin. The Cowboys have shown they're not afraid to draft an offensive lineman in the first round. And I think that that's what they do here. And I think that the Cowboys take Will Campbell at 12.
Now it's time for the fun, as we do the group with the Dolphins. Like you mentioned last time, we did have the Dolphins taking Kelvin Banks. He is not available in this scenario. I know right now the popular pick is still Tyler Warren. Jordan, I don't know how you feel, but the more I look at it, the more I think about it, the more I'm leaning right now towards the pick at 13 being a defensive tackle. Now, the question becomes, which of the 3 after Mason Graham do you like the best? There's Kenneth Grant, Graham's teammate. There's Walter Nolan from Texas A&M. And then there is Derek Harmon from Oregon, who also had a very good combine. To me, and I've said this before, I think as great as Zach Taylor is, and he does make the people around him better, I think you do need to add someone who is another playmaker, especially since we don't know if Calais Campbell will be back and he is 40. So I do think you do have to look at D tackle. I do love Tyler Warren. I will say this, aside from maybe Ghost of Adam Gase, who is a Penn State fan, I think I was on Tyler Warren before anybody in this fan base because I watch Big Ten football more than most people in this fan base. So I do know how good Tyler
They
Warren.
became Tyler Warren fans and they played Notre Dame.
Yes, most people did. Or USC, but I've known who Tyler Warren is for a while. But my pick would be to go D tackle. But I'm interested to hear your opinion, and I will defer because last time I think I talked you into Banks.
So for me, when looking at this, best case scenario is, I think, moving into this 18 to 21 range, somewhere right in here. And then you start talking about one of those defensive tackles. Then you start talking about one of those corners. Then you start talking about whoever's left between Starks and Emanwari. Then you can even start talking about one of those receivers. And I feel like we're just in that middle range right now where almost anybody that we're going to decide, it might seem like it's a little bit too early for. And the guys that we're going to pick, especially in this version, where we have Membo, Banks, and Campbell all going in the top 12, I think that really throws a wrench in the plan because it'd be really easy to sit here and just plug one of those guys into the Dolphin system and move on. But it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do that. For me, it comes down to one of three things. You mentioned one of four things. One, you mentioned the defensive tackle. The key part about defensive tackle to me is I think that there's a huge drop-off from Grant, Nolan, Harmon, like that range right there, to the guys that we're going to be able to get in the second or third round. So I think that that's key. I think that tight end, obviously, Tyler Warren, and Colston Loveland are staring us in the face. I think safety is obvious. Malachi Starks and Emanwari are safeties who both could be the pick there and could start immediately. And then I think you also have to look at receiver because a guy like Luther Burden, a guy like Matthew Golden, a guy like Emeka Egbuka could all add key pieces to this team. If it were me, I'd be deciding I'd probably lean Tyler Warren. I think that is, especially with the way this board fell. I think if Mason Graham was there, if Will Johnson was there, if any of the offensive tackles were there, hell, if Ted McMillan was there, I think this conversation's a little easier. For me, I look at the guy that we can add this year that will do the most for this football team. And I think number one is Tyler Warren, who I think will be able to both play tight end and help with our blocking, especially in a year that we're going to have Austin Jackson and Patrick Paul in his first full year of starting. We might need that extra blocker there, or a safety, whoever you feel is more versatile between Malachi Starks and a guy like Nick Emanwari. So I'll defer to you back with that kind of breakdown. But for me, I'll go either Warren or Emanwari.
Yeah, I can't justify a safety this early right now, even though it is a very important position, especially for this defense. So, yeah, let's make the people happy and go with Tyler Warren.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick. I think it's a realistic pick. And I think it's a pick that, looking back on this draft, when you do redrafts in 3, 4, 5 years, I think it's going to be seen as a home run pick.
Yeah. And we did meet with Tyler Warren at the Combine.
Yeah, so it's not just the JPJ fiasco from last year. This is, to me, real smoke. I guess I am back on the clock with the Colts. I kind of took the kind of easy pick for the Colts out of the way when we took Tyler Warren. Looking up and down this board, kind of what the Colts need. The Colts are going to need a bunch of new pieces in their secondary. I think they need both cornerbacks and safeties. And I think that this is the point where the first defensive back goes. And I think that the defensive back that the Colts take is going to be Siobhan Revel. They took Juju Brents a couple years ago from Kansas State, and I believe the second round, another bigger physical corner. I think Siobhan Revel is going to be the guy that once Tyler Ward goes off the board, that the Colts are going to settle on at 14.
I think the Falcons stay local. They need to add talent to that defense still. I think they're going to go Jalen Walker. Though I would not be shocked if it's James Pierce either. But Jalen Walker, I think, is just too good to pass up for them.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a run here of some edges going, of some linebackers, of some edges, of some defensive linemen going. And I think that Arizona is no different. And I think I'm going to go down a little bit. And I think Arizona here, did I pass him? I think Arizona takes Shamar Stewart at this point. I think he's a guy that's versatile. I think he's a guy who tested very well. And I think he has jumped. I think Mykel Williams is the only one we might have a little too late here. But I think that the guys we've listed have kind of jumped the James Pierces of the world. And Shamar Stewart's going to go in the top half of the draft.
Yeah. Bengals are a team that traditionally will just take the best player that falls to them. And with how this draft's gone, that is Mykel Williams. Especially, I know he's more of an edge / D tackle, but they did put Sam Hubbard on the trade block and might release him. So Williams makes sense. If he's not there, they'll go with the top D tackle available.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that it would make, from a schematic standpoint, probably a little more sense to flip Shamar Stewart and Mykel Williams.
Yeah.
And I think that when we look back, that's something that we could definitely see being possible. I think Seattle's going to add an offensive lineman. I think that they're going to add, depending on what they do in free agency. There's a chance that this is Tyler Booker. There's a chance that this is Josh Simmons. I think that because Simmons has a little more versatility to his role in the NFL, I'm going to give Josh Simmons to Seattle.
Okay. So Bucks can go a couple different ways. Looks like I've looked at a couple different mock drafts, and everybody has them going Jahad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama, but they do need an edge rusher, it looks like. With how the draft's fallen, I'm going to give them a guy that would probably be talked about as the biggest winner of the combine, but if he wasn't in the same class as Shamar Stewart and Mike Green. But we'll go James Pierce. Guess they do need a wide receiver, but I did see that they are trying to bring Godwin back.
The edge rushers that we have available here could go in any order. I mean, I think right now when you and I are putting an edge rusher to a team, we're kind of just picking a name of a guy right now. For the Broncos, I think that they can go a couple different directions, and I think it's going to be a couple different directions that could shock people a little bit. I could see a wide receiver, like it says there, but I think that the two most pressing needs for them could be filled with either Colston Loveland or Omarion Hampton. And I think that because the running back class is a little deeper than the tight end class is, I think that you're going to see the Broncos right here take Colston Loveland off the board.
Yeah, that seems to be a very popular pick right now. Steelers, don't be shocked if they make a move for Jackson Dart, but at the same time, they seem to be very much in the win now mode, and I think they're going to go after another veteran quarterback. So we're not going to go with Dart yet. They need to add talent. Their offense fell off a cliff the second half of the season. I did talk about the Texas wide receiver earlier. I am not ready to put him as the next guy. Golden. I'm not ready to put him as the next guy yet. But Ohio State's Emeka Egbuka. I still love him, and I think he will be the pick for the Steelers.
Are those your notifications pinging, or are those mine?
Those are mine.
Oh, okay. The Chargers are on the clock, and I think that Nick Scarton from Texas A&M is really the last top edge on the board. I think that this is where we're at the point where the edge class, if I remember correctly, if I'm looking at the class right here, I mean, you have Jack Sawyer, who's a nice round 2 guy, and can sneak into the end of round 1. But I think Scarton from Texas A&M is the last of that upper tier. Obviously, Joey Bosa might be hitting free agency. Khalil Mack might be hitting free agency. And I think that this is an opportunity for this guy, for the Chargers, to make Nick Scarton the 22nd pick of the draft.
As I keep getting updates, because I didn't put Discord on streamer mode, so I apologize about that.
Rookie move, Brett.
That is a rookie move. The Packers are getting ready to trade Jair Alexander. So I think you're going to go corner. And someone we did not talk about a lot yet was Jahdae Barron, the corner of Texas, who was another guy who had a really great combine. He is, like, I still like Siobhan Revel more. I think the injury hurts him a bit. But to many people who are not as familiar with Revel, I think they might have Barron as that number 3 corner, depending on what you view Hunter as.
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at 24 from the Vikings, I think there's a chance that the Vikings look at that pick from the Packers and feel like they stole one from them, because I think there's a chance that they might want Jahdae Barron there too. But I think that the Vikings look at their team and feel relatively okay with where they are in a little spot, in a lot of spots. And I think that this is an opportunity for them to take a want more than a need. They're going to see what the Detroit Lions did by taking a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round. And I think that they're going to go and take Amari and Hampton from North Carolina in the first round at the 24th pick.
Okay. I think the Texans go with another local product, and I think they go Matthew Golden. I think you saw when Nico Collins got hurt, the Texans' offense kind of, I don't want to, creators probably not fair, but they were not nearly as effective. You get another big, fast guy on the outside. So I think that's what they're going to do.
The 26th pick is interesting, and it's actually really easy for me the way the draft fell. But I think that you're going to see 2 spots. If Jackson Dart doesn't go all the way up here at 7 or 6 in this range, I think his next place that he could go, if we keep, well, I think there's going to be a little interest from the Colts right here. And then teams are going to start calling, I think, the Broncos, the Bucks, and the Seahawks to get him in front of the Steelers. But the big place is going to be this Texans spot, teams calling to get him in front of the Rams. Because I think even though Matthew Stafford restructured and is coming back, I think if Jackson Dart is there at 26, I think he goes to the Rams, and they see him able to sit behind Matthew Stafford for a year and then be their future quarterback moving forward.
Ravens, what do? Historically, they take the best player available and they take Bama players. They need offensive line help. So Tyler Booker. Who's going to, if we're being honest, he's probably going to go a lot higher than this in the actual draft.
Yeah, and it's funny because we're entering the spot in the draft where I feel like a lot of these guys, we're going to say, oh, he could go a lot higher. He could go a lot higher. He could go a lot higher. And that's just kind of the nature of the draft, especially in such a deep draft. Here at 28, you said that the Falcons stayed local. I think the Lions are also going to stay local. I think that they see a guy that really fits what they want to do, big, physical, and fast. I think Kenneth Grant makes a lot of sense for the Lions at 28 and would be a perfect fit for what they want to do.
Yeah. Commanders, first thing for them is they need to make sure that this season wasn't fool's gold, which a lot of teams fall into. But you just need talent. I think if Malachi Starks is here, you got to take him. So, yeah, they can go a bunch of different ways, but I think Starks is just too good to pass up.
Yeah, and I think that these teams, the Commanders, the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Eagles, are all going to look at the way this board fell and be like, "Wow, like there's some real talent here available to us." And I think that the Bills are no different because the Bills are sitting in a spot where they hear the Commanders coming the clock, and both Malachi Starks and Nick Emenwari are there. I think that this pick has to go to the defensive side of the football, and I think Emenwari is far above whatever other player that the Bills could take there. So I'm going to go Emenwari at 30.
Yeah. Chiefs with how the draft fell. This player is getting a lot of comparisons to Chris Jones, but Derek Harmon.
Derek Harmon to the Chiefs. I think that that's an easy comparison, plug and play. And then I think when you look at the Eagles are in a position where they have such a loaded roster that they can kind of go in a number of different directions and take a number of different players. And I think that the direction they're going to go is to add the best player. And I think Luther Burden sitting there ranks so highly above everybody else. I mean, he is a great number 3 receiver to go with Devonta Smith and to go with A.J. Brown. And I think at 32, do the Eagles have a couple other guys that they could take, especially on the defensive side of the ball? Yeah, but I think Luther Burden the value is so far and above that he could have gone 10 picks before this and we wouldn't have batted an eye. I love that. And I'm interested to look at what we did last time. I'm going to scroll up and then scroll back down slowly one more time. From doing this in March, Brett, about under 2 months before the draft, what did you find interesting or different from the first time we did this?
Just the biggest thing is just the differences of where we have the offensive linemen, like Membu, however you say it. We didn't have him as a first rounder last time. Now we have him as the top tackle. We have different corners going. We have more corners, I think, going in the first than we did last time. So now it's more about just different names coming to the forefront as they get more attention, as well as getting more of what the NFL insiders are saying NFL teams feel about players right now.
Yeah, it was a very interesting exercise, and I'm excited to see when we do this in a couple more weeks what it looks like compared to what it looks like right now. I'm going to stop the screen just so I can save this for us, and we can ad lib a little bit, and then I know we're going to do, before we get off of here, a Dolphins specific mock.
Yep. So we'll do a Dolphins one. We'll just keep it with before you pull up the screen, just get it set up that we have Tyler Warren at 13.
Yep.
So we're just gonna do that and then go from there. Let's just do 4 rounds, not 7. For now, I don't even think I think certain mocks only let you do to round 4 right now anyway. But yeah, let's just only do 4 rounds and let's build it up as we get closer to the draft.
Cool. I will give me a second here. We get us to Tyler Warren, and then I will get us to picking at 48.
Yep. Now I do see per the X handle Fins Extra, ESPN's most recent mock draft has us taking Will Campbell, offensive lineman from LSU, as we talked about, but also the Xavier Watts safety from Notre Dame, which I don't think you can complain too much about that.
That was Kuiper's mock, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. It's going to be interesting what guys are available here, if any, at 48 that we had in our first round. And it looks like the only one that's still available, not that it impacts us, is Jackson Dart.
Yeah. So go ahead and
I will one more time share my screen for the millions and millions watching. And we are good. The Dolphins are up at 48. We have taken Tyler Warren in the first round. Brett, you're looking at the guys that are available. First of all, let's talk about what you see as the biggest needs, and then we'll get into the players available.
So we took Tyler Warren. I think at this point, biggest need becomes offensive lineman and defensive tackle. I can already see right now Ursery from from Minnesota, great Senior Bowl, very good combine. He may not have I think he has tackle upside. A lot of people think he's a guard. He's probably going in the top 20 if we're being honest. So to me, if he's available at 48, you cannot say no. I do love Marcus Bowe. He is also not going to be there. Neither is Cornerly, so none of those three are going to be there. So to me, it goes between Ursery and Bowe, and God, that's tough. I would probably go Bowe, but I do
I'm
like.
I'm gonna agree with you and say Bowe simply because I think that there's a better chance he's there at 48, making this a little more realistic. I do have Ursery ranked a little higher, but I do think Bowe fits very, very well with what the Dolphins want to do. But let's say in a hypothetical world, we address the offensive line in free agency. Elik Eonamar is a guy that I think fits very well along with Jaden Higgins. And then you can't help but look at a guy like Makuba, who we had before in Mr. S's mock, or even looking at a guy like Maxwell Harrison, who had himself a hell of a combine.
Yeah.
I do think Deone Walker, another gigantic guy in that Kenneth Walker in that Kenneth Grant size category. But I think that, like you said, offensive line has to be the pick, and I think Bowe is the guy we go with here.
Yeah, and honestly, I think even the other guys aren't going to be there, and Bowe's probably not going to be there anyway. But to me, he's just the perfect fit for what we want to do.
As we fast forward ourselves to the 98th pick here. We got a couple trade offers for the sake of the people's time. We will decline those. And we are back on the clock here at 98, Brett. What positions do you want to look at? We can look at who's available by position.
I see TJ Sanders available. I know I've heard him linked with the Dolphins a few times. But let's look at cornerback real quick and safety.
I do think both of those guys, Shamar Turner and TJ Sanders, both are fits. I like Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant's a good career at Kansas. Yeah. Let's take a look at safety then, because safety class is kind of top heavy.
Yeah, I think that the only guy here that has really stood out to me during this draft process is probably Sebastian Castro. I think that the problem with Castro is that he's 25. I think that, and he's a guy that's going to you're going to get what you're going to get. But I think that getting him, if he was 22 or 23, he would be a second round pick, surefire. So I wouldn't be upset with taking Sebastian Castro there.
Yeah. So my guess would be either Kobe Bryant or go D tackle. So I'll leave that to you.
With Kobe Bryant there from Kansas. I do think that the cornerback position is going to be one that we address in free agency. I don't think we're going to let it get to the draft before adding a number 2 corner. So I'll say defensive tackle. And since you said that he's already connected with the team, I'll take TJ Sanders from South Carolina there in the third.
I do see Darius Alexander listed there too. He's another guy who's probably a first-round pick.
Yeah, that's a guy I don't see. If he's there in the third, I think that's the guy we probably take. And then we have what I believe is this our last pick? Or we have one more. 135. Brett, Kobe Bryant is still available as we look at our 3 picks so far. Is that the direction you think we go if he's still there? Or is there somewhere else you want me to look?
I would do Kobe Bryant there. We need a corner. Cam Smith just being a bust so far is basically screwing us.
And then our last pick of what is our 4-round mock draft here. I could see receiver being a way we go. When looking at our picks, I could see us taking another offensive lineman here.
Yeah.
I could also see us pounding the defensive side of the football. Yeah.
They have to update their rankings.
They haven't updated it, and that's why me and Brett didn't take him there because he's not going to be in there.
We got to be somewhat realistic. Jalen Reed's not a bad safety.
Yeah, that's a direction I would go. Kind of use that fourth round to upgrade the secondary. I'd go Jalen Reed with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say Jalen Reed.
And I think that we are. Is this still the fourth round? No, we are into round 5. So we're going to stop there. Tyler Warren, Marcus Bowe, TJ Sanders, Kobe Bryant, and Jalen Reed. And like Uncle Willie said, yeah, it is tough. As we get closer and closer to the draft, these things will get more and more realistic until draft day when we realize that the NFL teams had much different boards than us anyways.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's a good draw. I don't think anybody can really complain. Well, someone will find a reason to complain if our draft ended like that. But I think when you look at needs and availability and realism, it's as good as you can hope for.
Yeah, and we will leave this up. Brett, before we get off, is there anything else you would like to plug? I know that until we get to kind of April, we're going to be doing a lot more stuff here in the coming weeks. I know we want to get our roundtable that we had last year where we had content creators come on. I know we want to ramp that up again. But what are you most looking forward to, and what should the people look forward to as we go from now about probably 50 days away from the draft?
Well, the reason my Discord notifications were blowing up is the man behind RAS himself, Kent Lee Platt, is probably joining us in the next 2 weeks.
Love that. I love Kent. That was fun. I'm most excited if Kent's listening right now, which I don't know if he is. I'm most excited to know what's going on with his mustache right now.
Yep. Otherwise, like I said, it's draft season. We're a week away from I believe so. A week away from free agency, right?
Yeah. Under a week, 6 days.
6 days. So, that'll be fun. I'm curious to see what happens in free agency, but I know it's going to be an emotional roller coaster for Dolphins fans. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, man, it's going to be fun. And by the next time you and I talk next week, we're going to have some new players on this football team.
Yep. But I think that's a good time. Tenet, we are over an hour. Everybody, thank you for joining us. Uncle Willie, Callum, Carpet Dinosaur, Drink Water. I forget your full name. Drink more water, get more sleep. Thank you for joining us. Of course,
is that Hug Hearth? Is that Drink More Water? Is that who that is? Hug Hearth or whatever?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Hug Hearth. I added an H to that for some reason.
But thank you for everybody for joining us. We will be back at some point next week. We will have more information. And if anybody has any questions they want to ask Kent for next week or 2 weeks, just let us know and we'll make sure we can ask them. So other than that, I hope everybody has a great night and a great rest of the week.
Bye, guys.